to first of all get a perspective on the FX market and the developments we're seeing there post-MPC. What I'm hearing is that the central bank is making new moves to really show up the value of the Naira.
Good morning. I think you can agree with me that since the beginning of this year, the central bank has been concerned about the speculative attack on the Naira.
Right.
The last auction they did on Monday, they came up with about $200 million after they've restricted banks by increasing the CRR to 12%. Yeah, the stop rate closed at 155.84. Whereas yesterday they decided to up their offer to 250 million, and the Naira depreciated a bit at the official market just by 2 kobo. So the stop rate closed about 155.86. That has actually given a clear situation that, in as much as the CBN is looking at it from the angle that there may be some speculative demand, you would know that this is a highly import-dependent nation, because despite the sales by oil companies like Chevron, even at the interbank section of the market closed at about 161.09, which means is that that increasing demand for FX is still there despite all the CBN effort. Okay,
so let's talk about the new tactics. What I'm hearing now is that they are restricting banks that access the CBN window for liquidity from buying FX from the WDAX window. Talk to us about exactly what's going on there.
Yeah, this is an extension of the circular that came up immediately after the MPC meeting last week. What happened is that banks presently with this new circular are not going to access the WDAX window if you actually enter into any repo. And you need to understand that the repo window, the minimum CBN has is about 4 days. And if you look at the banking models of some of the commercial banks in Nigeria, you agree that most times banks go to auction with just $10 million. The implication of this is that if you have a financing need to access the official window, because that's the only way the market in itself can be liquid, what means that you are permanently limited from taking your customers to WDAX, which may actually jeopardize the effort of banks in terms of netting in profit this time around.
Okay. So, all that said, where do you see the Naira going versus the dollar this week?
From all that is going, the parallel end of the market is about 164 Naira to a dollar. That shows you that the demand are supposed to come from the official, because banks are being shifted to that parallel end of the market. At the end of the day, what CBN has done is to tamper with the balance sheets of the bank, which is a very restrictive measure. You cannot tie the hands of someone at the bank and expect them to fight effectively. This is a profit-motivated organization. And I think for this system to be moving the way it should be, I think we need to actually ease up. Maybe my suggestion could be to CBN to look at reducing CRR to 10%. Let me give you a sort of scenario here. You can agree with me that by increasing CRR, the intention of this is that the issue of creating money in the system, which is the major aspect of banking, will reduce to a very minimal level. And if that persists, we may see banks in the next coming year trying to separate some people from the payroll just to make sure that costs are minimized.
All right, so you just pointed to the fact that tightening that we saw earlier last week has obviously impacted liquidity levels in the market. But can you give us a picture of how things are likely to change? What I'm hearing, for instance, now is that interbank rates are now as high as 17%. Is there any easing coming up, maybe with some new allocations of federal allocations coming to market to show up liquidity?
Yes. Well, you have to understand that for the last 1 or 2 months, the FAC allocation that banks already use as a sort of to settle the tight liquidity in the system have been delayed on several occasions. The one of June was paid by last week, and the one of July will be coming in towards the 20th or 19th of August. Right. So you can see that we are going to live with this tight liquidity for a while. Yeah, but I must point out here that for CBN reason for actually increasing CRR, they actually hinged on a particular issue. The issue is that if you look at the monetary, again, looking at the broad money in the system, it has been increasing. And at the same time, one could say that GDP, though we have to take a cut on our budget for the year, has somehow increased. So when you place it as a numerator on the GDP, that's talking about the M2, you will see that CBN can easily say, yes, there is financial development. And that's actually what played out in the financial, 5-year financial, the banks published. So they have justification for that. For a developing country like Nigeria, you need to look at the risk sector of the economy. Because if banks can access funds at 18%, in the interbank market, I don't see how lending will move on at that level. And looking at the securities market, where the government are borrowing, you will see that there could be a sort of disconnect between what government is doing and what the players are looking at. Because the almost they did, the T-bill auction they did last week, yields on T-bills came out at about 14%, and 91 days was even at 13.9. So I don't see how somebody can access from that 18% and go and invest in a security of 13%. You can see such banking can